So the social media industry as a whole may finally be getting the reckoning that grieving parents have been seeking for years, right? With this specific story starting on December 7th, 2021 in a home in Philadelphia, because that is when a mother found her 10-year-old daughter, Nyla Anderson, unconscious in her bedroom. So she rushes this little girl to the hospital, but sadly, it's too late, with Nyla dying in the intensive care unit 5 days later, with her mom telling CBS News,
"She was my butterfly. She was everything any mother can ask for."
And as it turned out, what killed Nyla, it wasn't disease, it wasn't suicide, or any of the usual culprits. Instead, it was a so-called TikTok challenge called the Blackout Challenge, which if you don't remember was where you had people trying to choke themselves with something like a belt or a purse string until they passed out, which unsurprisingly led to the deaths of several children, some of whose parents sued TikTok, with that including Nyla's mother, who accused the company of repeatedly pushing dangerous videos to her daughter, with her lawyer also telling the Wall Street Journal TikTok's algorithm sent what was essentially a how to asphyxiate yourself video disguised as a challenge to a 10-year-old. It is inexcusable. But in 2022, we saw a lower court dismiss the suit, citing Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act of 1996. And with that, you've probably at least heard of Section 230 before as one of the foundational laws of the internet, with it granting tech companies broad protection from any liability for user-generated content on their platforms, with the law initially being meant to protect children by giving companies the security to proactively take down certain content without admitting liability for the content they leave up. But in recent years, critics argue that social media has outgrown those legal protections and begun to exploit them for profit, saying these tech companies, they're using Section 230 not to protect users from dangerous content as the law intended, but to protect themselves from liability for actually promoting that content. And now, apparently the courts are starting to agree, with us seeing the Third U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals taking up Nyla Anderson's mother's case and rejecting the Section 230 defense, arguing that by recommending blackout challenge videos on Nyla's For You page, TikTok exercised editorial judgment. And writing there, had Nyla viewed a blackout challenge video through TikTok's search function rather than seeing it because the site was suggesting it, then TikTok may be viewed more like a repository of third-party content than an affirmative promoter of such content. But of course, she didn't, so they're saying Section 230 doesn't apply. Now with this, the judge who wrote the decision acknowledged that this is a departure from previous rulings by the Third Circuit Court and other courts, but then arguing there that the reasoning underlying those rulings, it no longer works because of the Supreme Court decision last month, right? Because there, the High Court heard arguments over Republican-backed laws in Texas and Florida restricting which content social media companies can block, with the majority opinion stating that a platform's algorithm reflects editorial judgments about compiling the third-party speech it wants in the way it wants. So in other words, according to this Third Circuit judge's interpretation, when a platform actively curates content through an algorithm, that is the same as the platform creating the content itself. And so now the lower court has to reconsider whether TikTok is liable for Nyla's death, and this time without giving broad immunity under Section 230. And so with all this, we'll have to see, one, how this specific case turns out, but also two, whether it opens the floodgates for more lawsuits, not just against TikTok, but all other big social media companies.